Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Yami Noob. Thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate you being here. Title of today's video is why I think I actually understand the R1 now. I think when I first got it, I approached it in a way that perhaps didn't make sense, or maybe made sense for me as a rider, but I think now, after having spent some time with this bike, after having putting it on track, which if you guys haven't seen that video, check that out in the channel. Went out there to Eagles Canyon Raceway, ripped a bunch of laps with this thing, even had my buddy who's a pro racer rip some laps on it as well. Let me know what he thinks. Spoiler alert, he now wants to race a 1000. But yeah, let's jump on this bike. Let's talk a little bit about today about why I actually think I understand a little bit better, why it makes more sense to me, and just, my God, look at this thing. I mean, just on this alone, just looking at this site right here, I'd love to open up my garage and see this every day. But if you would like to open up your garage and see this every day, you can actually win this motorcycle. I'm giving it away for free. Hit the link down below, go to yaminoob.co and check it out. You can sign up to win there. You also get access to our Discord server, exclusive content, and all kinds of cool stuff. You can also head over to yaminoob.merch.com and you can pick out a piece of merch, a t-shirt, hat, whatever you want, and every dollar you spend gets you an entry to win. We're actually giving away a Harley Davidson as well as part of our Modern Classic giveaway series. And right now, if you use the code REALBIKE, that's in all caps, you get yourself 10% off and 2x entries towards whatever sweepstakes you want. So that's my special little deal for you for checking out this video, and I truly do appreciate it. So the first thing I want to mention about this bike, which is why I think people get it, why I think people fall in love with it, is of course the sound. This motorcycle features a 998cc cross-plane inline 4 cylinders, one of the most unique sounds in all of motorcycling, I think. Let's get it in neutral here so we can actually turn it on. And I think a big reason why people buy bikes is both their looks and their sound, and this one has a very good look and a very good sound. Let's take a listen. Got that low grumble to it, this aero system with the titanium mid-pipe. Look at that. Look how good that looks. It's a really good sound. It's a really good vibe. And so I think the first thing you have to do with this motorcycle is just look at it. I mean, look at it, look at the way it sounds. Look at the way it sounds, does it make sense? Take a look at it, look at the lines, look at the sound. It's just pure thoroughbred sport bike. So I think that's the number one reason why people get this thing. But I think there's something else beyond just that. Ooh, I'm low on gas. Would you look at that? Let's go fill up. So the other big reason I think people get these bikes is because they're very flattering to ride. Now, this might sound like a bit of a surprise because you think, 200 horsepower, leader bike, committed ergonomics, like a really, angry motorcycle like this. You must think, man, I must be a real handful to ride. But it's actually not, and that's why I think it's a really, really interesting motorcycle, because you jump aboard this thing and, it's really easy to ride. It's really intuitive and very flattering. So what do I mean by flattering? So when I took it out to the track, the one thing that really shocked me is that this bike allows you to feel like some sort of MotoGP star, even if your lap times are 25 seconds off the pace. Because of the sound, because of the way it flicks in, because of how intuitive it is to ride, you can spend a whole track day and feel like a real star on this machine. Now, are you going to learn a lot? Probably not. Are you going to be able to push your limits? Probably not. Can you push the bike's limits? Probably not. So when I first got it, I approached it as, how would this be as a competition machine? Because as many of you guys know, I run a 675R in CMRA. I'm a novice racer. Which, to be honest, it's funny that they call them novices because a lot of those guys run lap times that are way faster than the expert level groups in most track days, so don't be fooled by the title. A lot of those novices are real fast. I'm not saying I'm really fast. I'm okay, but yeah, don't let some guy tell you like, oh, I'm an expert level track day rider. That doesn't mean anything for racing. So yeah, so I run the 675R for CMRA, and when I got this bike, I kind of approached it with that in mind. I was like, oh, how would this do as a competition machine? Blah, blah, blah. Because I think a lot of people think about it in that way. A lot of people look at the R1. Gotta do a little pull, right? Even though we're low on gas. I think a lot of people look at the R1 as a competition bike. And it kind of is, but it also isn't. Because I'd say 98% of people who buy these things do not intend on actually competing with this motorcycle. Now, there's a big difference between going to a track day, having fun with your bike, being an enthusiast. I'm just gonna run this. Being an enthusiast and enjoying your motorcycle on a track, I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a great way to explore what your machine can do in a safe environment. But when it comes to competing and actually trying to win races and rack up points in your local club, you know, this, you gotta be really on your game to try to run a 1000cc bike on track to compete in a race. It is very difficult to extract what these machines can do on a racetrack. To give you guys some perspective as well, here in Texas for CMRA, it's not like leader bikes are much faster than 600s as well, because a lot of the tracks we run are pretty small and pretty technical. So most 600s are actually about only 1 second off the lap record that a 1000cc would have on a local track. So it's really not a case of, you know, oh, you get on 1000, you're going to be going so much faster. It's just more of a handful to ride faster, and it's just more to manage. So if you have a straightaway, you know, you might only be able to clip off 1 gear as opposed to 2 or 3 on a 600. And if you've ever been to an event and seen some of these expert guys ripping up the R1s and all that kind of stuff, it's a whole other ball game, man. Like, you got to be a real man's man, a real good rider to extract what these bikes can do. But I don't really think Yamaha cares about that audience. I think they think that, you know, club level racers, expert guys, they're going to jump on one of these bikes and they're going to do what they do. But what Yamaha's tried to do here, and I think they've massively succeeded, and most leader bikes succeed in this is a weekend warrior kind of bike, you know? This is a motorcycle that, you know, someone on a weekend would love to go and rip on a track day, feel like Rossi when they're screaming this R1 down the straightaway, and that feels awesome. And I don't think there's any shame in that, you know? I think that perhaps when I first got this motorcycle, I had in my mind that, you know, if you bought it, you had to go compete, you had to go really rip up your racetrack, you gotta be a real good rider to ride it. But that's not really for everybody, you know? I personally love exploring my personal limits on a motorcycle and competing and doing track days and racing and really taking it seriously, which is hilarious because there's no money at the end of it, it's just for fun. But you know, that's not for everybody, and I think that the R1 serves a really powerful place as a motorcycle that succeeds really well as a, you know, weekend warrior kind of bike, an enthusiast motorcycle. The other big thing is the electronics and the components that this bike has, you know. Very few middleweight bikes and basically no 600s except the Kawasaki ZX6R and the brand new 765 Daytona, which is a limited edition bike, have electronics or traction control or wheelie control. Not to say that you really need wheelie control on a 600. I think that if you're having wheelie problems on a 600, your throttle hand needs some work. But on a 1000, they will just wheelie all the time. If you watch an expert level racer on a 1000cc, those things are just constantly ripping the front wheel up, because once you get good drive out of a corner, the thing just lifts and there's nothing you can do because, you know, physics are against you at that point, and you got something with 200 horsepower right underneath your bum there. Let's see if we can get some gas over here, shall we? Boy, it's crowded here. Alrighty guys, all fueled up, let's get going. So yeah, the R1 comes equipped with a ton of really interesting and fancy electronics, and if you're into that sort of thing and you want a fully fared bike, you kind of have to go with the leader bike. There's not really any good options in the middleweight category that comes with this level of sophisticated electronics, to be honest. Now, is that a bad thing? I think so, a little bit. I would like to see middleweights come with those electronics, but at the same time, manufacturers have to worry about their margins, and it's a lot easier to slide in some electronics on a bike they're going to sell for, you know, 20 grand as opposed to 15 or 12 grand or whatever it is. I mean, damn, Kawasaki sells you a ZX6 with traction control, rider aids, all kinds of stuff for 10 grand, I think, at this point, that's nuts. That's crazy. The other point I wanted to make is this is especially relevant for an American audience, I think. And I've seen this a lot with R1s. And even though it does pain me a little bit that this does happen to these bikes, you know, the R1 is a 200 horsepower motorcycle. And if you like going fast on the highway, which a lot of people like doing here in America, this is a pretty dang good tool for the job, honestly. It's lightweight, it pulls like an animal, and if you just want to do crazy highway pulls, it's pretty good going with an R1, it's not bad. So if that's part of the experience you want as a motorcyclist, you can definitely have that, which is really cool. Now, do I condone doing 150 mile per hour pulls on the highway? No, definitely not, guys. That is not for me. But I would be remiss to not mention that people definitely buy these to go and do that, you know? Is it something that I want to see? Not particularly, but it does make sense for the audience that this bike is intended for. So again, do I think that this is a bike that's a good commuter, a good, you know, daily bike? Definitely not. And I know that there's a few lunatics out there who they do daily their R1s. I don't know why, but there's definitely better tools for the job. But they do daily their R1s, and that's fine. But I think for a lot of guys buying these bikes, they're weekend toys. They are very flattering when they do the occasional track day. They make a great sound. They look super cool. And they're priced reasonably well, and they have Japanese build quality. And so they kind of just work, which is a great thing. You know, you don't have crazy valve services like you would on a Ducati. You don't have any weird European farkles with this thing, and it makes a really exotic sound. It doesn't sound like a traditional inline 4-cylinder motorcycle, which I think a lot of people are very into as well. So it's a really interesting package. It's got passing power galore, that's for sure. Barely even need to get into 4th gear for this thing for the highway. Long gears on this bike. And I think the thing the R1 succeeds, you know, in sitting here in the cockpit and looking down at it and, you know, enjoying this motorcycle, it really succeeds in making you feel super cool. I feel super cool riding this motorcycle. It looks awesome, it sounds cool, I feel cool, you know? And motorcycles are really aspirational things, because I've mentioned this before in another video of mine. We were talking about motovlogging and how it exists as an aspirational video for you to understand if you like motorcycling and this and that. But the R1, it can almost be summed up as an aspirational experience, you know? You sit atop of it and you feel like you're Rossi, even though you'll never be Rossi. But the point of it is to feel like someone who's cool, you know? It's no different than buying a really high-end suit. Are you gonna use it all the time? No, not really. But it's a really cool thing to trot out every once in a while and be like, yeah, I feel like $1 million when I'm on this thing, you know? And I think for a lot of guys that I've talked to who own these high-end leader bikes and sport bikes, a lot of it is that, you know? There's a guy I know at ECR who has a ton of leader bikes, tons of toys, and, you know, he just brings them out every once in a while, has fun with them, and just goes home and, you know, enjoys his life. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's super awesome. I think the only problem happens if you start deluding yourself and telling yourself you're some amazing rider and you're really fast when you never compete, or you never race, or you never push yourself, or you're running, you know, 20 seconds off the pace for a lap time. But then you're running into a bit of an issue. But I think for a lot of these guys, they don't really concern themselves with that, because at the end of the day, they've got a 200 horsepower motorcycle and you don't. So I think for them, they just think it's awesome. I think for a lot of people as well, it's like when you buy a super high-end SUV, you know, or a super high-end truck, buy some $100,000 F-250 that's fully loaded or whatever. Could you do the same with another truck? Sure, but you like the way the big truck makes you feel. All of it comes down to that, my guys. It's just about how stuff makes you feel. I think that's why people get embroiled in spec sheet warrior conversations and weird battles with themselves about what bike is better and what bike makes more power. Dude, none of that actually matters. All that matters is, how does this motorcycle make me feel? And if it makes you feel good, fucking get it, dude. It's awesome. So I could see now why people make the case for the R1. I can see now why you would get one as just like a motorcycle and not as a competition machine. It makes a lot of sense to me. It does. It really does. I'm rolling through here in downtown, making a big noise. I feel cool, you know, I can't lie. I think that's my other favorite thing about the R1 is, you know, you cruise around town, the exhaust is sound this way. Dude, I'm turning heads everywhere. This thing's so cool looking.
Hey, thanks for watching the video. Why don't you click this one right over here and you can keep watching some more of your sweet Papa Yam. Maybe this one will have fun memes in it. Maybe it'll be interesting. Maybe I crash a motorcycle. Who can say? Maybe you should click and find out.